Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Welcome to Never Been Promoted. It's our first day running that intro if you're watching, so I love it. It's funny. It's cute. Hey, this is Never Been Promoted, here to help you unleash your entrepreneur. I'm your host, Thomas Helfrich. We're here on a mission to help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. I really believe the world needs more entrepreneurs. In particular, I would love to see the United States get as many as possible. I think it's a great advantage to have, and I truly believe there's so many people who are just kind of unhappy in their work and their jobs. They kind of earn for it, and they don't know what to do. So if you can learn something from the journey of our guests, and maybe what they're doing in the world today, you're taking the right steps towards getting better. If this is your first time here, thanks for coming. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. Go to neverbeenpromoted.com and kind of learn how to join our community. Also, find the YouTube channel, book, all the stuff you need. But enough shameless promotion. Let's bring on our guest here, Adi Vaxman. She is the founder of Sheba Consulting. Adi, how are you doing?
Hey there. How are you, Thomas?
I'm good. Very good. You really stated when we were kind of off camera here that like one of the first problems in business to solve is to understand what those problems are. And we're going to dive into that and your consulting and your fractional work and how you grow your organization. But before we do, we're going to do an icebreaker.
Okay.
If you could be any historical leader in history, who would you be?
Oh my God, that's a tough question. I'm gonna have to think about that one. But probably, well, I don't know if I would be, but the Queen of Sheba.
Queen of Sheba. Please elaborate.
Well, my company's named Sheba Consulting. It's named Sheba Consulting after the Queen of Sheba. The reason why it's named after the Queen of Sheba is there's many reasons, but one of the reasons is that in an era where women were considered less qualified and less intelligent than men were, the Queen of Sheba was one of the more intelligent and conniving and manipulative business women out there. She's also deeply rooted in Jewish mythology, and no secret, I'm Jewish. And she managed to solve a very complex problem with King Solomon that was considered one of the smartest men out there in that era. And she was underestimated by a lot of people and surprised a lot of people, and was also a leader at a time that women were not allowed to be leaders. So this is many.
You just realize how smart they were. Like you'd be like, you are from the future, aren't you? You know so much more. Part of it is in belief too, right? Like you can be smart and be like, if you take an intelligent woman of today and put them back there, they'd be like, no, I'm definitely qualified to do this. So just be quiet, sit down. You don't know. And this the confidence plus. I couldn't imagine meeting that person because you would have the contextual alignment, but as a modern human, you'd be like, yeah, of course.
I didn't used to think that. I'm I'm nearly 50 years old, and I didn't used to think that. But when I was young, I also experienced in the world of business that was at the time very controlled by men. I realized that, hey, there's something wrong in this picture. And the reason why there was something wrong in this picture is that for years and years, I was conditioned to kind of hide who I am, hide emotions, not be emotional, not be considered hysterical, not show, that you have a heart. And I've practiced that for many, many years of my career, thinking that that's the way to succeed. And in my old age, I realized that it's really, really not. Our advantage is the fact that we have the ability to balance logic and emotion, that we have the ability to do many, many different things at once, that we have the ability to be worrying about our kids, folding laundry, and also closing, $10 million deals at the same time. And those are things that women have been typically and traditionally underestimated in. And I'm glad that I'm no longer part of that society that believes that.
Imagine fast forwarding 2,000 years from now, and if they look back at what parts of our societies now, they're like, I can't believe they used to do that. Like it's there. There's things that are going on now that will be like, you know,
I personally think that if more women were world leaders, we would have less wars.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know. That's a ruthless group.
Ruthless, but also very logical.
I don't disagree with that. You know what though? Of the variables of history, that is the one that hasn't presented itself as a different option to avoid wars. Like there haven't been like 50% women leading countries or whatever. Like there's not an equality in that. And so if you're repeating history, that's one of the common factors is that men are leading a majority of countries. Not all, but like, less so than before. But that's an interesting data point. That might be there's some validity to that, I believe.
Too much ego, and also too much ego in general leads to just bad decisions. In business too, ego just gets in the way.
Are you saying like the ego of a certain Russian dictator saying that I think I should take the state back?
For example, yeah,
For
or
example,
or the Iranian one that's threatening to
another one, right?
what they're doing in the.
That's my toy. We bought it. My grandpa's grandpa's bought that. I want it back, even though it's completely honest. Sorry, yes, we're gonna. I don't lose my Russian audience. Okay, I don't care about that. I don't even know if they get any internet. Who knows? All right, so let's. Don't get me started. Tell me about your business a bit. So give me the pitch, like this is what we do, and back up to how it kind of became.
Okay, so we're fractional leadership practice. We are not very big. We're about 10 people, and we've been around for 15 years. So way before the term fractional was known to anyone or popular, and at the time it was just outsourced. And fractional leadership really means that you get experienced and seasoned, talented executives at a fraction of the time, and obviously a fraction of the cost of hiring someone full time. And the point of it is, there's several points to it, but like you get access to top talent that most smaller companies usually can't afford, and so they compromise for just less experienced people. You have the cost efficiency that comes with, not needing to pay full-time employment costs. You have flexibility to adjust service levels as you need, depending on your needs and your budget and many other considerations. You get expertise that is very broad and varied in industry and in knowledge. And, doing fractional for as many years as I have, I learned that even before I was a fractional COO, I was a COO for many years. And you don't learn the same things and at the same rate, the same pace that you learn when you get exposed to so many different clients at a time. So all of these things make for a very good business model for companies that are smaller or trying to scale, trying to grow, or are going through some kind of a change process that need help. And that help is usually temporary. And by temporary, it could be a year, or it could be 5, but it's usually not something very long term.
Yeah. How did you launch 15 years ago? What was the calling? What was the idea?
So I
You
was,
are behind that, because like that, like fractional has become like a common thing, but there's a few of you that did it way back when it wasn't bad.
and I'll tell you, I had an epiphany at some point. I was COO for a bunch of tech companies for, good, I don't know, 6 or 7 years before I started this. And over those years, I was doing little consulting projects for different startups that were coming into the US. I'm originally from Israel. I've, been in the States for 26 years. So a lot of these Israeli tech startups would sort of come my way and come across my desk, and I helped them sort of get accustomed to the US market. And I've done that sort of on the side when I was employed full-time as a COO. And at some point, I was working full-time as a COO for a company that was pretty large. It had about 1,400 employees and, nearly $300 million in revenue. And I started tracking what I'm doing in my time and realized that 80% of my time was spent doing things that did not require my abilities, my expertise, or my knowledge. And I could have had someone that makes $80,000 a year or even $60,000 a year do those things with the right guidance, the right hand-holding, and the right supervision. And that was sort of an epiphany moment, because I was myself working, I don't know, 90-hour weeks, because that's who I am, realizing that I'm really wasting time and money by being there. And that's when I decided to take this company full time and moved it from like a side kind of hustle thing to a full time thing that I've been doing ever since.
And over the 15 years, maybe talk about the challenges in growth, sustaining growth. You get referrals and you don't. Like, talk about like kind of the pains of growth itself. I think a lot of companies struggle to start because they're like, how am I going to get my first customer? And then it's like, well, then how do I get my next? And then you kind of freeze because you feel like you need to solve that problem before starting. Which there's some truth to that, but you're not gonna know. Talk about your own maybe path on that journey, because it's you've been through all over with it. I'm sure.
So there are challenges on both sides, right? There's the first challenge is, when you get started, is how you get started. For fractional, it's pretty simple because, you need your first client and then your second client. And I think the biggest challenge for a fractional leader, anybody doing fractional work, is how do you scale it? Because you're one person and your abilities are yours. And then what? You get your 3 or 5 clients and you're booked, and that's it. So when that happened to me in the beginning, and at some point I think I was committed to like 80 hours a week or something like that, and I realized that I could have someone else do some of the stuff that I'm doing in the background to help me manage time. And so I hired my first executive assistant, and I started teaching her to do certain things. Again, not directly client related, but for example, pulling a lot of insights out of my reports and my notes. I would take notes of interviews with different, with different people in the company to figure out gaps, and I needed to pull out repeating insights from those notes. So that's something that could take a few hours, usually a few hours of my time. So I taught someone else to do that. And then I taught her how to create my reports and create some of my presentations and, give me a draft to work on. So I only have to edit and I don't have to create the whole thing. And so that's how it started. And I started it this way. In my own firm, what I do is that I usually bring people in as a support team first. So they come in as a supporting role to our fractional leaders first. And they do that for a while, usually over a year, and sometimes longer, sometimes 2 or 3 years. They perform a supporting role and they learn how we work with our clients. They gain the trust that they need. I'm a bit of a control freak, so I need to make sure that people that I bring into client sites are trustworthy, and I can trust them 100%, and I can trust them because we have exposure to clients' most sensitive things, like their money, their bank accounts, their HR, their legalities. So we start people on supporting roles. They learn how we do what we do. They shadow our leaders for a while, and then slowly they start working on clients together with a leader, and eventually we bring them onto, with clients directly. Everybody working for me are people that have done C-level roles before. A lot of them are people that I've known over the years. So, we don't just, a lot of fractional firms bring in subcontractors and, kind of freelancers, and we don't do that. Everybody in the company is our company employees. They work for us full time, and we take the time to make sure that they are operating within the values of the company that are very important to us. Now, so the first challenge is growth, which I covered a little bit. And the second challenge is, what do you do when things slow down, which does happen, especially, the market conditions keep changing. And I don't know, the last year has been challenging as well for different reasons. So there are ways to plan for that, right? If you're a business that tends to suffer from these waves of ups and downs, which a lot of businesses do, then you need to plan for that. You need to make sure that you have enough cash reserves, that you have enough money to sustain your operation, that what are the areas that you're cutting when your business is slowing down, and you're not surprised and you're not, oh, what do I do now? And you need to decide what are the main priorities, such as in my case, for example, it's my employees. What are the main priorities that you are keeping at all costs? And because what you're invested in more than other things. So it goes both ways. And of course, it doesn't help, if you have good sales and marketing, which in my case, we've never really needed. We're not fractional in sales and marketing areas, and that's really not our area of expertise. All of our business comes from referrals. And so sometimes you just don't get referrals for a while, and that's okay.
Yeah, and you're a lean company, so you don't even have, part of it, like you didn't mention there, is you just don't have time for bad hires. Because if you get someone who doesn't work, you can't be like, well, if we slow down, that person's gone. You just can't. For you, it's like you don't even have time for that. Like everyone's got to be on point and worth keeping in downtimes.
Yeah.
And the fact you have a plan. So hey, we know we're going to cut this event. We're going to cut these things. No more Christmas party, whatever.
Certain things go first. A lot of, like, we do an annual offsite, and certain things go first, and we say, okay, this year we're not going to do that. But everybody knows that the employees are more important than anything else. And the other thing is that when we do have times where our employees are not fully busy on doing client work, then they are working on doing our work, right? So this is a good time to redo our collateral, or to redo our, I don't know, sales deck, or to rethink our content strategy, or to invest more in social media, or to do other things. And so we always have a plan of what to do with people's time when client work isn't taking, 100% of it.
Right. Talk about, like, the other things though. So, when you're a business owner, you're facing all types of things. You're trying to just run a business, but how do you balance some of the personal stuff and just environmental things in your life? Like, so, and you pick the example if you like to, but I know that's a big struggle for many entrepreneurs, is balancing family life, friends life, more global conditions, things like that. Like, whatever it is. How do you find balance, or do you, actually probably a better way to ask that first. 90 hours a week, tell me maybe you're not.
I have a whole theory on work-life balance. I feel like the term work-life balance makes it seem like, we're on a scale and one tips the other. And I feel that in my life, it's always been wrong. That's, like, I can never put my work and my personal life pitting against each other. I think that's wrong. I think my way of dealing with that, and always has been, is to kind of weave them together like that, in a way that, they're not competing against each other, but they are weaved in. And I encourage my employees to do the same thing. If it means that, I have to get out in the middle of the day to go watch a concert of one of my kids, then I do that. And I encourage my employees to do the same thing, as long as it's communicated. And so that way your work and your life don't compete for each other. They kind of more harmonically blend together. there are times where, I have to decide that this is more important than that. And so I make my priorities, and I sometimes reschedule calls because I have something to attend that has to do with my kids or something to work on. Or the other way around. I sometimes reschedule my weekly ice cream with my kids because I have a meeting that I do not want to reschedule. And I think the trick for me has always been to blend it together. My family knows and understands what I do. I try to get them involved in a way that they will understand why I'm making the choices that I'm making. But one thing that I've learned from, a very long career, I've been doing this for 33 years now. And if there's one thing I learned, that stress of, what is my employer or what is my client going to think of me if I'm, leaving in the middle of the day to go to my child's concert, I threw that out of my life a long time ago. I feel that is something that's been stressing me out for many years before I owned my own company. And I decided when I started the company that we're not going to have that kind of culture. We have a culture where as long as you communicate and as long as you do the work that you need to do, nobody looks at the clock at what time it is, what time did you log in, what time did you log off. These things don't matter. They're not important. They don't indicate somebody's performance or their commitment to the business.
I used to have an employer, and this is all like you needed a mouse shaker just so you could show you your green. And then Teams came out with a new level of, well, they're not on documents, they're not doing this, and they're not. And I was like, if you work for a company that's measuring you're working for the wrong kind of company, just in general. Like, I know personally, like we went to 4-day work weeks from day one. I don't ever track time. It's just like, you have so many hours into an account you need to be for a customer. But as long as it's getting done and everyone's happy, it doesn't matter. If you can deliver what we pay you to do in 4 hours in a week, or it takes you 40, I don't care. Like it's the same value for us. But even more importantly, like, with the productivity, you need to go, do these things, because that's actually what matters is, you're not going to remember the meeting unless it's a $100 million meeting. You might remember that one, but you're not going to remember just a normal meeting. But you will remember seeing your kid at 9 or 10 years old trying to play a violin and sucking at it. Like you're gonna remember those things, but more importantly, they're gonna remember you were there, and that's actually what matters. Is that they know you were there, and I think what you set up is, I think anybody listening, if you're building a company and you're building it just like you came from, you might be missing an opportunity to build something greater.
And I think it's a lot more than that, right? A lot of companies, including my company, are remote today, and this gives you opportunities, but also challenges, right? So if sometimes, like it's summertime now, right? I'm sitting here in the air-conditioned office, and I usually sit here all day long from like 8 in the morning until, I don't know, sometimes 8 or 9 or 10 p.m. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm cold in this AC and I need to go outside. I want to see the sun. And so, I write to my team, I'm stepping outside to take a walk, and that's it. And it's not because I'm the owner of the company. It's because this is the culture that I believe is right to instill in any workplace. And I encourage my employees to do the same. If you need to take your dog for a walk, go out and take your dog for a walk. If you need to take a doctor's appointment, the question marks in the eyebrows that I used to get when I was a younger employee in a company is like, oh, why is your doctor appointment at 2 p.m? Because that's the time that the doctor had. What are you going to do? Like, they make you feel guilty for existing. And to me, that's the wrong way to go about it. We are human beings. And this goes together with what I said earlier about being a woman and feeling what I'm feeling and allowing myself to be who I am and not having to hide it. It's part of the same thing. We are human beings. The best work that we do is that when we're happy, right? We do the best work when we're happy. If we're unhappy, we're not going to do good work. So what's the point in keeping people so oppressed and unhappy? Even if you don't mean to do it. So many companies do it without meaning to do it, because there's this culture of, oh, who stays, the longest in the office? Who is active at 8 or 9 or 10 p.m.? Or answers messages at midnight. And to me, it's not about that, right? If you want to answer your message at midnight, I don't care. If you don't want to answer it after 5 p.m., I don't care either. I have employees that like to work at all hours of the day because during the day, they do other things, and that's okay. And I have employees that like to work, during business hours, and that's also okay. Because at the end of the day, each person needs to do what's best for them in order to be the most productive.
And I think this goes to a management style, right? And you still have to have you got to have a bag of goodies at the end of the day when you're working for something or something. But if you set up roles in a way that they can't be measured to some kind of form of success, then you will get people that will abuse it, right? So you will get people who will, go drinking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon just because they can, or they'll like completely just not log in, they should be. You gotta, and that's okay as long as you get your work done, quite honestly. But if a company has set up a role in a way that there's no accountability, then you will get people that will abuse it, even the best employees, because they're going to be like, I'm really not accountable for anything. So I think part of it is in management of this role does this, your bag of goodies is that, and I'm here to help you get that. Any questions, kind of thing. And I think that's a big challenge sometimes with some employers is they don't really know what the role is supposed to do.
So it's a lot more than that, in my opinion. First of all, that's where the trust and the values that you set up in your culture come into play, right? You have to set up the right values. And secondly, of course, that flexibility does not have to come and should not come at the expense of accountability. Those are two different things. Having the flexibility to manage your work style and your work day is one thing. Not being accountable is a completely different thing, right? So making sure that you have the channels, the processes, and the right infrastructure to keep everybody accountable and to make sure that everyone knows what their goals are, what they need to achieve, what they're doing well and what they're not doing so well. This is part of ongoing management of employees in general, where you have to make sure that your employees understand what you expect of them. This is something that many business owners fail. Yeah. How do you communicate what you expect? And so many business owners that I see in my professional life don't know what to expect and don't know how to communicate what they expect. And then when people are failing those expectations, they also don't communicate the feedback. And so all of those things together, they lead to lack of accountability and taking advantage of the flexibility. But if you nip those in the bud, and if somebody, does something that you don't like or against your expectation, then you need to point it out immediately. And again, it might be the Israeli culture that's still in me, even after all these years here. I believe in just being very direct and just being very transparent about what I like and what I don't like, what I expect. And when people made a mistake or when they did something that is not the right expectation, then you tell them, you talk about it, you explain, and you move on.
Well, and I think what I'm setting up a little bit, just to understand how you bring your company in. And I think, you run a successful company, you keep it lean, you keep everyone still happy, and you don't, work them to death. Now take that to the customer. So the thing that we were talking about is what problems to solve first is the first problem. For you, it's getting the right people and team in place. So when you go to a customer, you're ready to be successful. From the customer standpoint, walk me through like the common journey. Like they've called you in. What's normal? What are the normal triggers they bring you in, and what are the normal problems they're initially thinking they're facing, and then it would typically actually reveals itself.
So I'll tell you one thing, probably 98% of our clients come to us when they have a serious problem to solve. Unfortunately, only about 2% of clients come to us before they have a big problem to solve. And that's, just the reality of business, where people don't want to pay or have an expense for a problem they don't have yet. It's I wish it was the opposite way, because it's the wrong way. The best way is to resolve the issues before you have them and not have to fly a plane while the engine is burning and try to fix the engine while the plane is flying. But that's just the reality. And so in many cases, it's scaling went wrong, which is when companies grow and all of a sudden they have all these new clients, or they have all, these new users, or whatever the case may be, and their infrastructure, processes, employees, and everything in between just can't withstand the growth, and everything falls apart. And then they start, they're afraid of losing clients, or they already are losing clients. And things are falling apart. That's one area. Another area is when there is something failing in one area of the business, and it could be fulfillment or sales, or it could be anything. It could be customer support, or it could be manufacturing, or it could be, in the case of tech, that the tech stack isn't strong enough to withstand all the growth. So like usually there is one trigger or one problem area that brings them to seek help. Many times they come to us after they've already sought help from multiple different directions and failed in different ways. Some of them come to us when they are so desperate that they're ready to give up and throw the business away and just say, okay, I'm done. And, my hands up in the air and goodbye. And the small 2% come to us when they're saying, okay, I want to grow this business. I think I know how, but it could be useful for me to have help of somebody who has done this before that could help me avoid big pitfalls and fires and risks and all kinds of situations. And unfortunately, that's only the 2%, but they do happen. We do have them, and those tend to be the most successful, to be honest.
Yeah, the typical client that's coming into you, right? Do they bring in for one problem and you discover more, or are they really coming in to say, take over this strategic initiative and solve all the problems?
They usually come because they feel they know a problem, a certain problem. Sometimes it's the right problem, sometimes it's the wrong problem. So sometimes when we start digging in and doing the gap analysis and discovery process, we realize that one problem may have been the symptom, but the real cause is something else, or combination of issues that we need to solve first before we can address that particular symptom. But usually there's some trigger, and the trigger is usually some kind of symptom. In many cases, we find that symptom really can only be resolved last, because before you get to it, you need to build layers of infrastructure and right process and training and getting the right people in the right seats. That seems to be, I think, one of the major pitfalls that I see with business owners is that they don't necessarily know how to find the right people and how to put the right people in the right seat. So the talent acquisition and the talent preservation and making sure that people are doing the right kind of role, that seems to be one of the biggest problems that I see.
Here's some references to EOS there. Yeah. Entrepreneurial, the right seat, right people. Good book, by the way, if you haven't read it anymore. But you do need an organization of a certain size. If you're solopreneur, read it for future context. That aside. Okay. Question for you is this. In your own journey, what would probably be the number one thing you wish you would not have done?
I wish it hadn't taken me so long to come to the realization that the rules of corporate America that I was trained to follow, that the rules are wrong, not me. For many years, I just thought, okay, I got to fit myself into those boxes, and, I got to make myself into what the rules are. And it took me way too long to realize that actually, no, I don't. And I shouldn't, and nobody should. And too many people are still making that compromise, and it's a tough compromise, and it's the wrong compromise, because there are so many things in life that you have to compromise on, and being who you are really shouldn't be one of them ever.
Do you have an example of, like, you can recall, or like, if I had that same come up again, this is how I would handle it? Do you have like a story?
I'm trying to think of something. Like a long time ago, I worked for a tech company. Doesn't exist anymore, but was the sort of first inventor of voice over IP. And we were selling to big telcos in Europe. This is still when I was living in Israel. We were selling to big telecoms in Europe, and we were meeting with, the CEOs or executive teams of Telecom Italia, and I don't remember the other names, like British Telecom and large telco companies. And so I remember that we had to go in dressed a certain way and speak a certain way and do certain things. And we were in a meeting with some executive from AT&T, and I don't remember, two others. One, a British telco, and another European telco. I don't remember who was the third one. Telefonica, maybe. Like these. This is a long time ago, and I decided that I'm not doing that. And I was very young, and I just decided I'm not doing the same, thing that we kept doing. I was a young sales engineer. My job was to explain how the technology works and to explain it to people that have traditionally been very much against, any new technologies, because hey, it's telecom and that's how it, we've been using plain old telephony for so long, and this is how we do this, and period. And they're huge and I'm tiny. And I remember walking in there. I was wearing my hair in two braids, and I stood up there and I said, um, "You guys are doing it all wrong. You are not embracing a technology that's going to change your life, and this is going to be the biggest mistake of your life if you don't do this, because this is going to be what this world is, and it's not going to take very long. And the fact that you're letting your engineers that are too scared or lazy or, who knows, determined that you're not going to adopt a technology that's going to change the world, that's on you. You're going to regret this." And I walked out. And I almost got fired for that meeting. And that meeting was the first big sale that we made.
And it was because you walked out.
I don't know if it's because I walked out. I don't know if it's because the way I walked in. I have no idea. But I remember that, when the news came in about 2 weeks later that they decided to go with us, this was one of the first sales that we made. It was very big news. And, until then it wasn't clear whether I'm going to be around or not. I was kind of sitting in the corner.
2 weeks. They signed, or I'm out of here.
And I remember thinking to myself, at least I did what I felt I should do. And at least I remained, I said what I thought I should say. And, of course, it's not always right. And I was very young and very stupid. Now I know that, right? When I was 20, I didn't think I was stupid. I thought I knew everything, just like my kids are now. But
Yeah,
I think
as much as I did, I'd be so smart now.
A lot of this is about, there's too much nonsense in the world of business of, you have one conversation, but you actually think something completely different. And it doesn't work for me. I don't know who it works for, but it does not work for me. And I learned a long time ago that that's not who I want to be. I don't want to be two-faced. I don't want to say one thing and mean another. I just want to be who I am. It's so much easier.
It is. I remember one of my first jobs, like day 3, I had a boss. It might be day 3. It's probably 3 weeks in. He'd already done I never worked in an environment with a bunch of people from India. So here I met like 20 Indian people over the phone. I'm in like first time meeting with them in another city. And my boss at the time goes, "What's his name?" And he goes around, and I didn't know anyone's. I was like, "I don't know anybody's name." And I'm like, "You're such a dick." Like, I mean, like, first of all, I've never worked with any, you can barely pronounce half their names. And I've never seen any of these people in live. Like, it was like such an asshole. He proceeded 3 days later to tell me that I needed to change my personality to be successful at that company. And I was just thinking, go fuck yourself. It's like, anyway, he was probably right. I needed to do a little bit. But anyway, that being said, you fast forward to your own company. There was a customer we had, and I love the fact you said that you kind of challenged him and walked out. I told him, I said, "I don't think we should work together because I don't think you'll accept some of the strategies and the things we're telling you to do, because I think you'll be too controlling on it and it won't work." And I left it there, and then the guy called 3 days later and said, "Hey, I really want to hire you. I agree with you." I go, "Cool, but you're gonna get out of the way when we need you." And he's like, "All right." And so and he did. We've been with him for a while now.
That happens to me a couple of times, a year, I would say. Like I meet with potential clients that I already know are not going to be open to the level of involvement that a change takes. Like, it's not easy to go through a change process. It's a very painful process sometimes. And not everybody just has what it takes to go through it. And so many times I feel like it's better for me to tell this business owner that this is just not going to be the right fit for them than to try to convince them to do something that's against what they feel is right. And so it did happen to me, not that often, but it happens when we meet a business owner and we say, you know what, I don't think you're ready for what you need to do in order to heal this business, in order to grow this business to the way that you want to. And
Yeah.
sometimes they insist on working with us, and sometimes we take it, sometimes we don't. And I can tell you a couple of times where I said, you know what, you're not ready for this. Talk to me, in 6 months. And they come back in 6 months and they say, okay, now I know what you meant. And now I'm ready to make the changes that you wanted me to make. And then it works. But bringing in a fractional, especially at a COO level, which is, we deal with operations, HR, technology, and a lot of very sensitive areas. And so finance, bringing in, excuse me, COO or CFO is a very intimate commitment, right? You bring in someone to kind of go through your most valued secrets. And you don't always want that person to see all the things that sometimes you've done wrong. And so if you're not ready to really be open and reveal it, then it's a little bit like a marriage, I say sometimes, because it's a partnership. If you're not ready to be completely transparent and reveal what's there and listen to the person's advice and have the conversation, then it's probably not the right timing for you to bring on that person. Like, you have to be humble enough at the point that you arrive to the conclusion that you need that kind of help. You have to be humble enough to take the help and to take a deep breath, put the ego aside, and have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the advice I try to give the people out there is, initially you're going to take a lot of customers you probably shouldn't, and you also don't maybe fully understand some of the services you're delivering and their value in their place. So take them. But as you get more mature and you know what you can do and you know what you shouldn't be touching or doing, push back where people are pushing you in the wrong way, or they really are not hiring you for the right reasons. Because you're first of all, those customers suck. They'll be 10 times more expensive from a time and energy standpoint than the other ones.
That's
And
true.
they'll ruin your reputation a little bit, because typically sometimes customers like that blame you for everything anyway. They're just looking for someone to say, oh, they screwed it up further.
Yep.
And sometimes you bring a fractional in just so it doesn't work, and you can see how they were terrible. They're just protecting their own. And so you have these kind of political dynamics. You're not as real. Maybe you have those own examples of those.
And we've learned to identify those, but I also want to say something else. Bringing in a fractional is very different than bringing in a full-time person. When you bring in an employee, there's always this employee-employer relationship where the person is not always feeling comfortable enough to give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? And when you bring in a fractional, our single goal is to make you successful. It's not to make money for another month or another 3. It's to make you successful, because that's going to bring in the next client and the next client and the one after that. And so, because the nature of our work is by definition temporary, the relationship is very different. And you need to be willing to accept someone who's going to tell you the things you don't necessarily want to hear. And not everybody's willing to do that. A lot of business owners are just in the, oh, you work for me, so I'm going to tell you what to do. But that's not what you brought me in for. You brought me in so that I can tell you how to fix this, and I can tell you how to grow this. Or we figure it out together, but not for you to tell me what to do. And that's a mindset shift that many business owners have a hard time making.
Oh, 100%. And I was trying to find some of these life lessons, right? In what you built. You took a risk because you didn't want to be like everyone else, and you could see that there was a value there. And I think that, to kind of, just conscious of time, we'll just kind of bring this together, right? When you're out there and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for yourself, and you're performing at some level, think about how you could do it for yourself in your own company. And specifically, you're just kind of tired of the rat race or the people around you. Sometimes that's enough. Secondly, I think, trying to niche down as fast as possible so you can offer a certain level of service and value to somebody over and over and over again that you really know well. And maybe you can talk about that too. Just like, have you niched down to a point where, like, hey, we really solve these kind of problems the best and there's like a poisoned, if you play chess, called a poisoned pawn. There's ones you think you should go chase, but you're like, if I do, I know that goes down. I lose if I do that. So as you make the transition, what's the recommendation of people niching versus being tempted by things you shouldn't go chase?
Well, I'm a little tainted because I get bored easily. So to me, repeating the same thing over and over again is just boring. So, we work with several industries that we kind of got down to a science and we know how to solve problems. But I've also learned that businesses in any industry are just businesses. At the end of the day, we're all pretty much the same and we all pretty much have very similar problems. And the fun part is figuring out how to solve this problem in a way that is a good fit for this particular business in this particular industry in this particular time. And so I think that niching or just in general focusing on something very narrow, it's a personality trait. Like if that's who you are, then that's what you should do, because some people are just really good at it and that's great. And some people like me just suck at doing one thing. So they need to do 1,000 different things in order to feel fulfilled. And so if that's who you are, then that's great as well. So I think I don't think that it's a business question. I think it's more of a personality and abilities question. And I think the nice thing about fractional leadership in general is that you have the ability to use different people who have seen so much and have different experiences from different industries with different systems and different processes and different types of problems that they've solved. And so it really helps having that perspective when we come to a new client and we look at their problem. And even if it's a very different industry, I can tell you that in 9 times out of 10, probably more, 99 out of 100, I find a problem that even if I feel I haven't seen it before, I can find 10 examples from past clients that are relevant to how to solve this problem.
It's good. I like that. And listen, I love the fact that you're able to make that shift successfully. If I get bored, I'll do that. That is certainly not everyone has that talent. I mean, a lot of people get bored, but they can't translate that to I can still make business from that boredom. So I applaud you for that. I'm one who wants to do that, but just tends to fall on my face and scale. Like you talk about scaling without falling apart. I feel like every time I try to scale and get out my wheels a little bit, I'm like, things start shaking. That's why our Instantly Relevant fits so well with business growth around LinkedIn, because every time I said, hey, let's add this or this, I just feel like the wheels start shaking on the car a little bit. And I'm like, let's just really nail down. It's a big enough problem to solve for right now.
So to me, it's about curiosity, right? Like every problem that I don't know how to solve is another opportunity for me to learn something new. And I love getting out of my comfort zone and I love trying to tackle things that I haven't done before. Because to me, it's just another, hey, I get to learn something and that's cool.
I love it. Who do you want, who should get a hold of you and how do you want them to do that?
So I would say companies that are looking at either scaling or having trouble scaling. I mean, we help with distressed companies. We help with companies that are having trouble scaling. We help with companies that are looking to scale and don't know how. We help with companies that are looking to start an operation in the U.S. market and they're coming from other markets, mostly tech companies. And so most of our clients, I would say, are starting out with us somewhere between, the $3 and $10 million in revenue, although we've had much larger and, we didn't really have that many smaller. And usually under 50 employees, but it really depends on what the challenge is. And so if you feel like you have a challenge and you're not sure how to solve it, let's have a conversation. It doesn't cost anything to talk.
You start with a free consultation. That's a very smart way to do it. And it's Sheba Consulting, 1E, not 2. If it shows up in the description, that way I'll be sure to change. Fat fingers, I move a little fast. My tie-ups are legendary. See what I did there? Anyway, thank you, by the way, Adi. Adi, there's one question I should have asked you, though I did not. What would that question have been?
Ooh.
You can get political here if you want. Like we're at the end of the show. People are still here. They're going to own it.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd probably ask what made me who I am.
I was thinking, what made you who you are? you see how that worked? You gave me the question to ask.
I gave you the question. That was so simple. I had a lot of interesting and challenging life experiences in my life. I've done things in a very non-traditional way. When I was young and even later on, I've always done things, my family always said I've done everything backwards. I did things the way I wanted to do them and not the way society imposed them on me. I've seen a lot of challenges in my life, both personally and professionally. And I think all of those things combined made me able to look at problems in a different way than most people would look at them. And I see a problem, to me, it's a fun challenge. It's like, ooh, it's something I can fix. It's something I can solve. I'm a problem solver. So whereas a lot of people see a problem and they get, stressed out, or they get anxiety, or they, I don't get anxiety. Give me a problem and I get happy like a kid in a candy store. And so what made me who I am is the combination of all these experiences and all these experiences. And I love teaching other people, and I love mentoring other people, and I love helping business owners and entrepreneurs reach that potential and find the solutions to those problems that they find debilitating. And I just really enjoy doing that.
Yeah, I'm a person who like thrives in the ether of unknown. So I like that's a hard place to be, but like that feels comfortable. And then once something's solved and known, then I tend to get bored. It's like, oh, what's next? What's the next puzzle? I love puzzles. Right? Like the little
Yeah.
IQ Mensa tests. Like some people, are, oh my god, I hate those things.
Yeah.
I download apps and just play them. I just
those.
love them. Absolutely. And you're like, oh, what's this
IQ
now?
tests, I'll do them all day long.
All day long. And the funny thing is, you get two people like you and me in a room talking about a problem that could be easily solved with a screw, and we're like, well, what if we go to NASA and we get these crazy ideas, right? And like my wife, she's an operator. Like you give her a plan, it'll get knocked out, and everyone's held accountable, and shit's getting folded, and all the things, right? And like she is the operational ninja you never would get rid of as an employee. But sometimes we get these brainstorming ideas, and she's like, I just want you to listen. I don't want you to solve shit. And I'm like, that is the hardest thing to be when you're a problem solver. Sometimes just like and understand, and you're like, oh, I got an answer if you just. So
the thing with me is that I have a knack for efficiency. I cannot stand inefficiency. So
you have horror waste. You're like the law.
Yeah, spending a lot of time on something that can be solved quickly is just not my thing. I like efficiency. I want things to be efficient. Time is the only resource in this world that we do not have enough of.
No, we don't. I have to guess, only because I'm an autobiographer a bit, but if an employee comes to you with a problem and they don't have the words of, here's how I try to solve it, this is why I'm coming to you now, and I think I need your help now, I'd be like, what did you do to try to solve it? like, you know what I mean? Like, if I've had employees come to me and say, hey, listen, we have this problem. I went and signed up for the service because they have my card. And I'm like, okay, I think and I'm like, well, okay, but I think there's a cheaper way to do that. I love that. I'm like, hey, at least they took action and we're 2 weeks in and not waiting. I love when people solve things and then say, hey, just making sure that that's not so far out of bounds, or we're kind of stuck here in this little piece, whatever it is. I love when people do that, and not when they're like, hey, by the way, this what should we do? I'm like, what do you think we should do? Yeah.
So I'm the one that brings in the new stuff, all the shiny new stuff going on into the company, and then everybody kind of, goes after me. And we just posted a blog post about how we started the AI journey in November of 2022 and how I got everybody hooked. And now, we do a ton of AI implementations for our clients. So like, we really like technology. We like new solutions. We like anything that could make you more efficient. And we jump on those moving trains very, very fast.
I like that. I also do the thing, here's a new shiny toy. I broke it. I'll throw it on someone's desk and be like, could you fix that? Yeah. I tried setting up I go high level. You figure it out. I don't know. I had 3 hours to sign this up for a year. Can you take it? I've done that one. Adi, thank you. By the way, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I love what you built there. I love you guys, how you've done it with just being lean and mean and creative and on point with everything you're doing. And I love that you have such an attention to employees as your greatest asset. Not everyone has that perspective in the world. That's really solid.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna put you in the periwinkle room. I always tell people there's no snacks back there because I ate them all, but I'll have you right back.
Right. Awesome.
Be right back. Thank you. Hey, for everyone who made it this far in the journey with us, thank you for listening, watching. If you're listening to it, your favorite podcast player, please take a moment to do a review, hopefully a positive one. Get a hold of me on LinkedIn if you didn't like something about the show, or if you just want to come on the show as well. You can go to neverbeenpromoted.com and check out all kinds of cool stuff there. Subscribe to the channel at youtube.com @neverbeenpromoted and join our mission to help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. It is my goal to make that happen because we need more of them in the world, and I'm doing my part to help. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, get out there and go unleash your entrepreneur.